it's been a while, but no, I'm not dead. When we last left off, I was just about to fight this girl, and, did you touch me? Excuse me, but you were the one who walked up to me. You don't just go around accusing people of sexual harassment that never happened. Like, who are you, Monica Rial? Anyway, in Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu and Eevee, this line became, "Did you push me?" Not only in English, but even in Japanese. So, yeah. For those of you who think that SJW censorship doesn't affect Japan, well, it does if your franchise is so globalized that you have to make sure the Japanese version doesn't offend Americans. So for those of you who've seen my Super Mario Land playthrough, there's one thing I want to correct myself on, and I already posted a comment on that video correcting myself, but I want to say it again here. I was talking in the last episode about Japanese shoot-'em-up series and how they're supposed to be pronounced, and I mentioned the Darius series and how it's technically pronounced Darius. Well, I totally confused that with Gradius because it's actually pronounced Darius. So yeah, because the Japanese spelling is actually Darayasu, not Dariusu like I claimed, so I kind of mixed that up with how Gradius is actually Gradius.
Oh my god, who the hell cares?
So yeah, this is Route 3. Actually, part of this area is already part of Route 4, but you're not supposed to really know that. I think the reason they did that is just because it was easier to program two separate routes rather than having one route go like over the... go like a 90-degree turn right here.
Oh my god!
But in Fire Red and Leaf Green, once again, I don't think the Fire Red and Leaf Green people really got what they were going for, because there's like this pop-up that shows up that says, oh, you're on Route 4 now. So yeah, right here, you're actually already on Route 4. This is Route 3, this is Route 4. And this little ledge here was actually removed in yellow, because jumping over it at the exact spot where you would cross over to a different route, when you had Pikachu behind you, would glitch the game. So this guy is the infamous Koi King salesman, as he has been a running joke even in the anime, and he sells you a Koi King for 500 yen. This is, I'm not gonna do it, but this, if you want a Gyarados, this is actually not a bad idea, because, well, first of all, you only ever get the chance to fish when you reach Kuchiba City, and even then, even if you don't care about getting it early, I still recommend getting it here, because right here you can get it without getting the old rod, and I actually recommend not picking up the old rod for the same reason that I recommend not getting the town map early in the game, because it just wastes valuable space in your inventory, and since it's a key item, you'll never get it back, even if you get the better rods later on and it just becomes obsolete. Same thing goes for the good rod. Unless there's something you specifically want to get with the good rod, I'd recommend just not getting it and waiting for the super rod. So we're in an area where there's really not much to comment on aside from the usual complaining about too many Zubats and shit. So there's something I want to talk about that I want to get out of the way as early as possible in the LP, because it's something that I'll be referring back to throughout the Let's Play, and it's kind of required knowledge for that, so I just want to get this out of the way. The guy who translated this game, as well as all the other main series Pokemon games up to Platinum, is a man named Nob Ogasawara. And he was a guest on a live stream a few years ago by a charity streaming group called the Speed Gamers. Now, not only did they auction off the original Game Boy that he used in order to translate the first generation, but they also have hours worth of interview material with the guy. And there's some really interesting information that's revealed there about the localization process of these games. And some of this was already known because he was like a regular on the Something Awful forums, but there's also a lot of new stuff in there. And I'm gonna talk about it whenever it becomes relevant in the game. So yeah, if you want to check those interviews out, I'll put links in the description. They're really interesting, except, you know, if you're holding a marathon for a charity stream where you're playing Pokemon and you get someone who actually worked on the game, or at least its English localization, to do interviews with, would it be too much to ask for to get someone who actually knows anything about Pokemon to do the interview? Like, Nob's memory is foggy at times, which is understandable because, you know, he said himself that he hasn't played the games in years. But if the interview was done professionally, this would be where an interviewer would step in and refresh his memory, but the interviewers were, for the lack of a better term, completely incompetent. Like, there's a part where they're talking about the inside joke at Game Freak, how, you know, one of the game designers, Nishino, is like nicknamed Kabigon, which is the Japanese name of Snorlax. And apparently, Nob remembered putting this in as an Easter egg where Nishino would be like one of the nicknames, one of the preset nicknames you could give to Snorlax. And no one stepped in to correct this. How are you in a position where you're holding a marathon about Pokemon and are in a position where you're interviewing someone as important as the lead translator for the first 4 generations and not know that wild Pokemon that you catch don't have preset nicknames? Just like when they're talking about the dub, like someone asked Nob what he thought of the English dub of the anime, and he said that he hadn't really watched much of it, so he didn't say much of it. But then the interviewer stepped in and she talks about how anime, like in the 90s before Pokemon, would get these Americanized dubs, and that Pokemon was like the first one that didn't do this. So what you're telling me is that in the 90s, anime used to get censored and Americanized, and then 4Kids came and introduced us all to the world of uncut anime. What fucking universe do you live in? Okay, I really need to stop talking about this. They're raising money for charity, and it's awesome that we got this interview in the first place. I really shouldn't be so picky. It's just that, you know, the interview could have been much better if they had interviewers that actually knew what they were talking about, because half the time people in the chat were asking questions and nobody knew what they meant. Like, someone was asking about Youngster Joey. No one knew who Youngster Joey is. How are you holding a Pokemon marathon and not know who Youngster Joey is? Okay, I'll stop. Next topic. So there's another topic that I want to get out of the way as early as possible. It's another thing that I'm going to be referring back to throughout the LP, and it's about cut content. Anything that was planned for this game but didn't make it into the final version for one reason or another. There's a website out there called Helix Chamber. They specialize in this sort of stuff. They go through pretty much the entire development history and try to piece everything together, and it's really, really interesting. Again, highly recommend to check this website out. However, a few months ago, they did something that not only hurt their reputation a lot, but I think that will have negative impact on the Pokemon fandom for a long time. So what happened was they got a zip file full of shit tons of leaked assets from Generation 1 from an anonymous leaker. And the leaks themselves are generally considered to be real. That's not the issue, and once again, there's a lot of really interesting stuff in there, and once again, I'm gonna refer back to this throughout the LP whenever it becomes relevant. The controversial part is how they decided to go about releasing this leaked info, making it known to the public. They could have simply had an article that says, here's what we got, and that's it. But no, what they did instead was they held a live stream of someone playing a ROM hack that is made to be like a mock-up of what a beta version would have been with all this content that was leaked. I should have switched out. I was thinking I was gonna kill it this round, but then it used fucking quick attack, and then... So yeah, they were playing a ROM hack that was made to be like a replica of a beta version, including all of the content that they got in the leak, plus some fan-made filler stuff, like how in the leak there were like back sprites for a lot of unused Pokemon, but no front sprites, so they made their own front sprites to like fill in the gap. But yeah, essentially it was a ROM hack that was made to be as close to what a beta version could be like as possible. Here's the problem though. They shit-faced lied to their audience. They straight up claimed what they were playing was the actual beta version of Pokemon Red and Green. And people who said that it was a ROM hack in the chat were getting banned. And if you think that sounds scummy, it's not just scummy, this was straight up fraud because they were asking for donations for this. They were straight up dead ass going around like, oh, if you donate this and that much, we'll show off another piece of beta content. And then half the time that beta content that people paid to see was not actual beta content, but was completely fan-made. And then only at the very end of the stream, they were like, oh, well, guess what? It was just a prank, bro. That was funny, right? Is anyone else laughing? Well, I guess it would be kind of funny if you didn't scam people out of their fucking money. And as for the reason I say this could have some really bad consequences for the Pokemon community in the long run, it's that, well, since they decided to go at it that way, the actual real leaks, or presumably real leaks, as well as the fan-made filler content for the stream, were both released at the same time. And at the time, like I said, nobody said what's real and what isn't, because they were claiming it's all real. So now you have all this stuff out there, and nobody knows what's what. Now Helix Chamber, after the live stream, have cleared it all up and said this is what's real and this is what's fake. But that's not gonna stop people from spreading misinformation anyway. It's only a matter of time, if it hasn't already happened, for some clickbait YouTuber to be like, hey, look at all this cut content from Generation 1, and just throwing everything in the same basket and not making any difference between what's real and what was fan-made. And this has happened before. You know how before the Gold and Silver Space World demo was leaked a while back, there were these drawings floating around everywhere on the internet of supposed beta designs for Generation 2 Pokemon? Well, I guess that's technically what they were, but people were claiming that those were official artworks for Pokemon that got scrapped. That's not the case at all. From what I can gather, what they actually are a fan's recreation. Some Japanese fan who attended the Space World event and played the demo when it was actually shown, long before it was leaked, and then went back home and drew the Pokemon that he saw in that demo from memory and released them on the internet. And then they got spread around and people started claiming that they're actual official artworks from Game Freak, and these are official Pokemon designs, guys, and these got scrapped, when that's really only half the truth. And even now that we actually got to play the Space World demo after it got leaked, and we can see what these Pokemon were, what they got right, what details they got wrong, I still occasionally see people spreading these around. So yeah, moral of the story is don't believe everything you read on the internet, especially for leaked content of anything. Check your sources. And it's never 100% certain if anything is real or not, but in some cases, there is a definite, no, this is fake. And even the stuff from the Helix Chamber leak that is supposedly real, it's generally believed to be real, but take it with a grain of salt. There are still some things that people are kind of about. This that don't seem to add up quite a... Oh, Nidoran is evolving! A Helix Chamber claims that the non-fan-made stuff is all credible, but then again, considering what they pulled, is Helix Chamber themselves still credible? And now I think I'm gonna go ahead and give it the water gun TM that we got at the beginning of the dungeon. It's really not gonna be very useful for in the long run. It's honestly one of the worst moves to ever get a TM, but this early in the game, especially in a dungeon with this many rock types, it's gonna be more useful than Leer. I guess they put it there in order for people who started with Hitokage to deal with the rock types, but Hitokage starters must have already had a thing to deal with rock types if they managed to make it past the first gym, so yeah, I really don't know what the thought process there was.